Hey everyone, how's it going? I thought it could be neat to show you guys what an average time spent playing ESO looks like for me. I'm currently working on a video that details a few gold earning tips for those of you that may not have a lot of time to play ESO all the time. That's a pretty common sentiment that I hear actually, that people don't have a lot of time to play and therefore the steady rate of inflation in the game has been pretty tough for them, since they aren't spending that much time making gold whenever they do have a chance to play. So if you fall into this category, I promise I'll have a video out for you guys in time. In many ways, I too can relate with being in that predicament, honestly. Despite what some comments have suggested about me, I am not actually a basement dweller, if you can believe it. There are many days where I'm so busy with real-life responsibilities that I barely have time to even do anything fun for myself, including playing ESO just for myself as opposed to gathering footage for a video or what have you. But then there are of course times when I have a handful of hours to spare, and instead of spending them doing something social or respectable, something that would make my parents proud perhaps, I spend them in Tamriel. I know, I'm very cool. And a disappointment to the family. So without further ado, allow me to show you guys what I enjoy doing on ESO every time I log on and have a fair amount of time to spare. I'll be showcasing a lot of little daily endeavors that are quite profitable. I figured this info could be handy for those of you that are newer to the game and aren't fully aware of all the neat opportunities to make gold while you play. And experienced traders may be able to pick up a pro tip here or there. What does your ESO daily routine look like? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Maybe I'll learn something that I ought to include in mine. Alright, let's get into it. When I first log on, the first thing that I do is take a look at my sales from the last time that I was online. Then I'll quickly check Tamriel Trade Center for deals. At any given time, I have a handful of items that I'm flipping for gold. I tend to have a bunch of TTC tabs open on my browser, and I'll just quickly go ahead and refresh each page. I'll scan through the first and the second page of each type of item that I'm flipping, and if I see any nice deals, I run along to the traders that are selling them and purchase the wares. I'll also quickly make a trip to the dragonguard sanctuary in southern Elsewhere to pick up my daily allotment of dragon materials and crappy furnishing plans. To be fair, sometimes you do get the odd purple plan from these. You can unlock this little loot box by completing the Elsewhere main questline, and I highly recommend doing so since those dragon mats are no joke, man. They sell for a lot. Unfortunately, you can only loot this supply cache once per day per account, so no need to do the quest on more than one character. After I've gathered all of the cheap listings for the items that I'm flipping, I tend to list them on my guild traders and then go ahead and do my writs. I used to only do writs on one character because I really don't find this kind of gameplay to be very entertaining, but I've recently gotten into doing them on all of my toons now. Daily writs are just so profitable, it's really difficult to pass up on doing them, despite how monotonous they may be. To try to make writs more bearable, I tend to do something else at the same time. There are a lot of load screens that you have to endure whenever swapping characters, so whenever I'm waiting to load into the game on a new toon, I'll usually just take the time to respond to some comments on YouTube or in my Discord server. Whenever I get to my main PvP toon, Volenway, I'll also quickly make a trip to the Imperial City after I finish up her daily crafting writs. I have these weekly PvP events where I take the Tamriel Trade Secrets guildies to IC and Cyrodiil. These events usually start with a quick round of Imperial City dailies. Since you can only get one Siege of Cyrodiil merit from these dailies a day, I make an effort to come down here and turn in one quest each day to get my merit, and then I deposit it in the bank. You can use these merits to buy really neat and exclusive items, like this Siege Master's helm and uniform, or the best in slot ERP costume in the game, so I highly recommend doing these dailies whenever you can. Fortunately, they are quite simple to complete. After each set of writs is done on each character, I'll drop off any surveys that they may have collected from doing writs into my bank. Once I've finished doing all my writs on all my characters, I'll go ahead and log back on with my main. Something that I'll do from time to time as I play ESO, especially whenever I have a break or I'm waiting for others to log on or be ready to run some content, is I'll constantly check up on those TTC tabs that I mentioned earlier, to spot if any new deals have since been listed. If they have, then I go ahead and purchase them to relist for higher, since I know I'll be able to sell these items for more, and likewise profit from doing so. So at this point, when I log back in with Artemis, I'll do a round 2 of scouring TTC, and I'll frequently check in on these TTC listings for the rest of my time spent on ESO, whenever I have a moment to do so. At this point of my day in Tamriel, I'm more or less free and available to run any kind of content. Sometimes I'll group up with a friend for some PvP, or sometimes I'll run pledges with guildies, or prog a VDLC dungeon hard mode with the besties, or join a bait trial in Craglorn, I don't know. Despite being a pretty introverted person in real life, I really do enjoy the social aspect of the Elder Scrolls Online. But sometimes people aren't available to play right at any given moment, so I oftentimes find myself waiting for them. Even if you don't really play with others, you may still be able to relate if you've ever waited around in a dungeon or a battleground queue. Sometimes I'll AFK in the RP tavern and read some spicy roleplay to pass the time, but most days I try to be productive with my time, and I'll do a handful of endeavors that I find to be fairly profitable. These particular endeavors are nice because you can pretty much stop doing them at any time, like whenever your queue pops or your friends are ready to run some content with you. These endeavors include the following. As I mentioned earlier, I tend to get a handful of surveys after doing daily writs on all my characters. If I've got time to spare, I'll go ahead and find these survey locations to collect a bunch of materials at once. If you ever have two of the same survey, you can always run a fair ways away from it after initially harvesting all of the nodes, and then return to it to see that all of the nodes have repopulated themselves. You can do this to change the outcome of your alchemy surveys as well. I enjoy finding the occasional treasure chest map from time to time, especially if they're maps for DLC zones. If you didn't know, treasure chests have a chance to drop leads for special ancient or ancestral motifs, and the ancestral motifs from the following DLC zones are worth a pretty penny to say the least. Like surveys, you can also run out of range and then return to the treasure chest location indicated on your map to reset the chest, if you have more than one of the same map. Mind you, you can't have more than one of the same map on you at a time, but you can have one particular map on you, one of the same kind in the bank, and an infinite amount of the same map in your mailbox. Kind of annoying, but it is what it is. I tend to store a bunch of the same kind of map in my mailbox to be efficient when farming maps for those rare motif leads. Whenever I dig up a mound of dirt, I'll retrieve another of the same treasure map from my mailbox or my bank, run away, and then run right back to dig once more, and rinse and repeat. If I collect any leads for motifs, I'll usually go ahead and scry and excavate them shortly afterwards. Make sure to take out your bastion every time you scry to get +5 social credits from him. The same can be said with Miri and excavating. I think I finally understand those Facebook moms that are hardcore Candy Crush players, man. This shit is honestly pretty relaxing. Though I wish Cinemax would buff the scrying minigame. I feel like I could complete it successfully if I was legally blind. I try to make an effort to do a handful of master writs each day, especially when our guild bank is nearly full of them all the time. I'll definitely have a master writ FAQ video in the future where I can go into more detail on how to best convert your writ vouchers into gold. To reward myself for my time spent doing these master writs, I usually will treat myself to a random furnishing plan to sell for gold or to use in a guild raffle or giveaway with some of the writ vouchers that I earned that day. I found that this is one of the most profitable ways to convert my vouchers into gold, especially when I buy Morrowind plans, but there are definitely other methods out there. I also enjoy doing world boss dailies in the most profitable zones. At the time of recording, the most profitable zone is the Reach, since the 3 motif styles that can drop from the 3 kinds of dailies here are fairly expensive, so I find that I get a good return on my investment of time spent here. Plus, the world boss mechanics are kind of fun, and the zone is beautiful, so I enjoy chilling here for a bit. If I manage to get through all of the activities that I've previously mentioned and the homies still aren't online to run any content, I'll usually just spend the rest of my free time working on my video projects or doing some guild work, like updating our guild raffle sheet or writing up event posts on Discord. But more often than not, guildies and friendos are online to run content with me, and I don't even manage to get through everything that I've previously mentioned. I usually try to run pledges if I can. They're a great source of transmutes. I enjoy collecting gear for my sticker book, and I could always use more Undaunted keys. For the most part, I'll usually do the first 2 non-DLC pledges, unless one of them is Tempest Island. Fuck Tempest Island, man, that dungeon is so unnecessarily long. Honorable mentions include City of Ass and Banished Incels 2, not a fan. And if some homies are online, I'll even do the DLC pledge, including the hard mode, especially given the fact that the hard mode guarantees you a motif upon completion for a majority of the DLC dungeons. One of the last things that I tend to do with my time on ESO is a bit of PvP. Converting your AP or your Telvar into gold is a super profitable and fun means to make gold after all. Saving PvP for last is also a strategic move because when I start to get a little peeved at the game's performance, or one too many gamers slide into my whispers to tell me that my mom is fat and I'm bald plus L plus ratio, I'll usually call it for the night. And that's about it. That's how I spend my time on ESO. It's a combination of making some smart investments that will pay off sometime down the road, flipping items for profit in the meantime, and selling all of the items that I collect from playing the game, like materials, motifs, and items that I buy with AP and Telvar, that allow me to earn a very comfortable living in Tamriel. I'd like to say a quick thank you to all of my YouTube members for going the extra mile and supporting my content creation initiatives. And of course, thank you to everyone else. We recently hit 12k subs, which is pretty epic, not gonna lie. Alright gamers, see you guys in the next video. Cheers!